Welcome back to Version Upgrade, the podcast for thoughtful career and life upgrades. We trade stories, compare notes, and turn them into small experiments that actually stick. And I am Shweta.
Hello everyone, I am Sahitya. So if your calendar is jam-packed, but your career still feels like it's parked in neutral,
You're not alone. Today, we are naming the fog and we are finding a way out without burning the bridges. So, think clarity, momentum, and a couple of honest stories from our careers.
Baje Parshada. Today we are going to try to map different kinds of stuck, how we each recognized it, what finally moved us forward, and a practical kit you can actually try this week with scripts, small experiments, and ways to make your progress feel visible.
Perfect. Before we actually kick off, Saitya, మనం స్టక్ అంటున్నాం మొమెంటం అంటున్నాం ఇవన్నీ అంటున్నాం why don't we first explain what stuck we are going to talk about today?
Yeah, great point. Let's start with that. So, Memo, in our careers, right, we noticed 4 different flavors of career stuck. And I'm going to walk through them. The first one is role stuck. Here, what happens is your title kind of plateaus. You're doing the same tasks over and over again. And that one steep learning curve that you had, it turns more into a flat road. You're not really growing. So you are still busy, but nothing is changing in your capability set. That is what we are calling as a role stuck. The second one is tech stuck. Here, you're glued to a legacy tech stack. You're working on something that is old and outdated. Here, what happens is your skills are not translating easily to modern tools, so opportunities pass you by even though you're fully competent. That is hard to take. And the third thing, what we're calling out is team stuck. Here, what happens is you are working with the team, but what you truly own is very fuzzy. The decision making is unclear. There is not a clear rationale for why a particular decision got made. And you can't really move anything across the line because nobody can say yes. And the last, but also very important, is what we're calling the company stuck. Here, what happens is your values, your incentives don't align with the organization's. And your effort and the reward system, it's like they're talking different languages. So these are the 4 different kinds of stuck that I want our listeners to take in before we move on.
Yeah, I think it's very well laid out, right? The whole landscape of stucks that we have experienced, I think you've explained it on point. But before we delve deeper, I want to also call out what not stuck is also, right? Sometimes man kanpichochu maybe this is stuck ani, but that not really stuck. So I want to give a few examples of what that could be. So sometimes you could have this rough patch with a teammate or a lead that you're working with. That might feel like stuck, but that's not. ఒక కొత్త మేనేజర్ జాయిన్ అయి ఉండొచ్చు న్యూ మేనేజర్ కమ్స్ ఇన్ అండ్ దెన్ యూ హ్యావ్ దిస్ ton load of meetings and you don't know what's happening. That is also not a stuck. That is just a situation. Or even a hard feedback on a single deliverable is not stuck. You might feel that lump in throat feeling, right? Okay, nothing is moving, but that's just something that is more temporary. The stucks that we want to focus are more perpetual. They are not like a small sprint or a week, but that lingering feeling, right, that makes you feel like waking up on Monday to start work is not as motivating. So identify the difference and try to relate to our examples.
Perfect. So if you can name it, name exactly what kind of stuck you are in, then you can work with it. So let's go back to story time, Shweta. Take us into what kind of stuck you have experienced in your career.
Definitely. So early on, when I just started my career at KPMG as an associate developer, senior developer roles, I was playing between both. I was working on a client server application. The UI was super legacy and it was basically converting a VB6 application to C#. That migration seemed fine because it's still dealing with some newer technology, but months in the work still started feeling like it was just copy paste repeat. It was not just bringing in that enthu in me.
And for our listeners here who are non-developers, I want to call out VB6 is Visual Basic and C# is Microsoft's .NET language. It's a programming language. And C# is more modern and more widely used.
Thank you, Sahitya, for that. I get so carried away sometimes when I talk about work. I don't understand our audience or people whom I'm talking to in general. Thank you for that. What you explained is right. Then what happened? Things kept feeling sluggish this way. And then we started new hires. Every summer we would have this new hiring program, and we had these two new hires. They were working on newer front-end frameworks like Angular and React. Their projects had that pull, new patterns, live users, the web. I was still kind of stuck in client server world, whereas the rest of the world was moving into this newer things, right? That contrast was like a flashlight. It showed me the gap, and I was feeling like, oh my God, I cannot do this. So that stuck feeling in Allah realize I am. But then what did I do? I first did two things. Okay. First, I went to them and I said, hey guys, I really like what you're working on. Can you kind of give me a walkthrough of how this works? Because personally, I believe in learning on the field rather than learning through certifications and trainings. Yes, certifications and trainings are important, but when you actually work on a real project, that's when you understand things much better. So after kind of getting that walk through, me doing some learning, the second thing I said was, hey, why don't I try and fix some bugs in your code? And doing these two, I was able to get my hands on experience. I started fixing bugs, my PRs were getting reviewed, and I was able to fix changes in the code that I started understanding. And that's when I reached out to my manager and said, hey, see, this is what I did. I picked up this language. I started helping that team, and I think I'm actually ready for doing something new. And then he realized that, yes, I was ready, and I started getting more opportunities. From there onwards, I felt like I figured out my formula, right? And I started applying that formula. Then I started doing the same thing. From web, I went to mobile. From mobile, I went to cloud. From cloud, I went to AI now. But the same pattern holds. Learn by doing and contributing something concrete, and then ask for more work that is in that lane.
Yeah, I love how you said learning by doing, because Shweta, that is what happened in my career too. I think what you learn by doing beats every kind of learning out there, just because you remember it and it sort of just sticks with you.
Yep. Another thing I wanted to also call out, right? These were junior developers who were younger than me. I didn't feel any ego to ask them. I think that's another thing that comes to people when you're working for a longer duration, right? You have this అన్నోయింగ్ గా ఒకలాంటి ఈగో ఉంటుంది. నేను అడగడం ఏంటి, నేను వాళ్ళ నాకన్నా చిన్నోళ్ళు కదా, నేను ఎందుకు, జస్ట్ లీవ్ ఇట్. యూ వాంట్ టు గ్రో, you will have to leave everything else and be vulnerable to learn things.
Yeah, totally. I understand it. And what you explained, that feeling of being tech stuck and how you moved from it felt like so rejuvenating. I want to jump into my story and speak about a different kind of stuck. What happened was I was in a role where the company changed around me and my title suddenly meant nothing. And this is something that happened early on in my career, and this stuck. The environment forced me, and I had to forge and create my own path. So this was early on. It was my first job. I found that job during my master's, and it was at a startup. And you know how with startups, how it works, within a year, it got acquired by a bigger company. And once the acquisition happens, there is like the whole post-merger turbulence, right? It is very rough because you have to sunset the startup's brand, there will be layoffs and everything. And I was grateful to keep my job, but my work became very meh. I was hired as a developer, but after the merger, my role changed. I just started doing server maintenance. It was just ensuring that configurations for our search servers were optimized for this search vendor's indexing requirements. Like the job was crucial. It was very important work. I could do it in my sleep. And after a few months of this, I was very restless and I was bored. So I asked my manager, hey, can I get more work? And he temporarily moved me to the Scrum Master role because that role suddenly got vacant. Immediately, I could see a shift. My calendar was busy and I was learning something new and valuable because I could see what everyone was doing, right? From junior developers to the senior developers. I suddenly had a lot more context on everything and it felt like I was back on track.
Awesome. So now your momentum started picking up. within the same organization. I love that.
Yeah, for a while it was great, but what the company did, they opened a requisition and they hired an experienced Scrum Master / project manager for that role. And I was back to doing server maintenance within like a quarter or 4 months. And appudu I decided, hey, I'm going to job hunt. But now when I look back, I know the root problem was agency. And here I'll take you back. I was 25 years old at that time. It was my first job in America. And as an immigrant here for less than 4 years, working for the first time with people of different nationalities, different accents, people who had a lot more experience in the American way of working, and people who knew things just by being born and raised here, there was no chance for me because I grew up in a culture where I never needed to learn how to advocate for myself.
So basically, when they posted this job, they started interviewing, and when they hired, నీకు అడగాలనిపించలేదా, hey, I did all of this, right? What did I miss that you tried to fill this with a new resource?
Yeah, that is a great point, and I did not. That was my biggest mistake then. I was not demanding enough, and I did not advocate strongly even to do more coding work. And while I excelled at that like temporary Scrum Master, I never asked to be hired. Basically, I was waiting for permission. I was expecting recognition to land in my lap. I was waiting for my manager to say, hey, Sahitya is already doing the role, so we should give it to her without me asking. And that lack of self-advocacy, it had its consequences. For instance, around my H-1B sponsorship, my manager took my case to the HR. HR declined and he didn't fight back. And I used to think, hey, my manager didn't have my back. Kani ippudu I know I did not give him enough evidence. I was not fighting for myself. I did not ask, I did not document my impact, I did not make a case.
I know, now that you speak of it, I kind of feel it comes a lot culturally also కదా. మనకి చిన్నప్పటి నుంచి అడగాలి, oh no, you have to be deserving అన్న ఒక మైండ్ సెట్ లో ఉంటది అనమాట. మన వర్క్ షుడ్ స్పీక్ ఫర్ అస్. ఎస్, వర్క్ షుడ్ స్పీక్ ఫర్ అస్, బట్ యూ షుడ్ స్పీక్ ఫర్ యువర్ సెల్ఫ్ టు. ఐఎమ్ అ హ్యూజ్ అడ్వకేట్ ఆఫ్ ఆస్కింగ్ వాట్ యూ వాంట్. What's the worst thing that you can get? A no. But at least నీకు ఆ satisfaction ఉంటుంది. And I keep telling this to my friends, my husband, my mentees, my peers that, just ask. You want something, ask for it.
యా, నువ్వు చెప్తుంటే నాకు మన సేయింగ్ ఉంది కదా తెలుగులో, అడగకపోతే అమ్మ కూడా పెట్టదు అని. బేసిక్గా ఇఫ్ యూ డోంట్ ఆస్క్, ఈవెన్ యువర్ మామ్ వోంట్ ఫీడ్ యూ. సో యూ జస్ట్ కెనాట్ డెలిగేట్ కెరియర్ ఓనర్షిప్, అండ్ ఐ లెర్న్డ్ ఇట్ విత్ దట్ ఎక్స్పీరియన్స్. Anyway, at that point, I knew I had to move on because I was stuck. So what happened though was that temporary experience as that Scrum Master, it became proof of what I could do. And that unlocked my path forward. I used that as my signal, and I used that as basically my portfolio. I put that in my resume and I used that experience to search for a new role. And I started job hunting. My job hunt was hard, and maybe it deserves its own episode in the future. But in less than 6 months, I landed a new project manager / Scrum Master role in California. So what happened was that temporary shift in my old company, it unlocked my path forward. And I realized like my skills were not tech stuck like how yours were, but they were role stuck in that particular environment. Close the loop on that. For me, getting unstuck in my career always involved two main paths. Either changing roles because I realized I will not get promoted doing work I did not myself enjoy, or I changed companies because I got a better title and better recognition elsewhere.
That's good. That's good. Now, ఈ example చెప్తుంటే నాకు something else struck to me, right? So the previous examples, we were not happy with what was happening, but there could be a situation that there might be partial incidents that you are happy with, but overall long term low, that stuck will have a downside effect. So alanti oka example what I want to share is, as I mentioned previously, right, I was moving from development manager to associate director to director. So the nature of the job was not changing, but the scope was expanding. So as a manager, I was doing couple of projects. As an associate director, that went to half a dozen, and then probably as a director it started expanding to even larger volume projects, like major programs. But the work started to feel like the same delivery route, right? I was enjoying solutioning, I'm not saying that I wasn't, but then my long term goal was senior leadership, owning a department, not just projects and deliverables. I started talking to my mentors, and they started reminding me, right? They kept telling me that department leadership is very different from delivery leadership. You need to have that cross organizational literacy, architecture understand avali, people systems and understand చేసుకోవాలి, budgets and governance and whatnot. Then what I did was I didn't wanted to jump to a different organization, but I wanted to figure out how can I use something that I already know, that I'm already seeing, to help me kind of bridge that gap into where I want to be with my long-term goal. So I was looking for that horizontal need across projects. And that's where I struck that, I needed that application architecture group. We had a solution architecture group in the organization, but we didn't have an application architecture group. Teams were using familiar patterns rather than designing for each solution. And that leads to a lot of drag, performance issues, rework, and missed opportunities. Then, after having interactions with some of my European teams who are using more advanced patterns, I learned their components, mapped our gaps, and pitched a need for a center of excellence to my leadership. The case was clear, right? I wanted to upskill our current tech leads. I wanted to choose architectures that fit the actual problems and reduce the timelines by avoiding rework. And the pitch landed perfectly, and I started leading the COE. I didn't wait for a role to appear here, if you notice. I built the bridge to my goal. And I started learning again new patterns, newer decisions, broader impact.
That is an absolute masterclass, Shweta. Like, I love how you named the stack. You did the homework. You brought a solution to the table. You got sponsorship for the solution from like the people above you. Then you ran with the solution and then you used that to show the results, right? So I hope all our listeners can take action from that.
Thank you. ఇప్పుడు వరకు మన problems, what we did, what kind of stucks we experienced, how we came out of it through our stories చెప్పాం కదా. Why don't we come up with like a practical kit that will help our listeners from going to this fog to forward?
Yeah, sure. I can start off. I think the first thing I want to call out is you have to unpack the why behind your stuck. Are you stagnant, where you have no growth, or are you undervalued, where you're not seen for what you're already delivering? You have to name the root, because if you solve the wrong problem, you will stay busy and stuck. So what are some signs of stagnation is you can predict your week. You are not learning anything new systems, new patterns, new decisions. You're basically increasing efficient at yesterday, which means you're not moving ahead. Signs of undervaluation is other people are presenting your work. Your feedback is very vague and the recognition goes to your teammates or to other teams. So first unpack the why. Second thing, label the stuck. Put it in a bucket. Is it the role? Is it the tech? Is it the team? Is it the company? And labeling will help you create options. Because see, if it is a role stuck, then you likely need some sort of a scope redesign or like a seat change. If it is the tech stuck, you need skill mobility. You need hands-on work on a modern stack. If it is a team stuck, what you need is decision clarity. You need ownership boundaries. If it is a company stuck, if the conflict seems unavoidable, you probably need an exit plan, or you maybe need to move to a different group if you're in a larger organization. So after labeling the stuck, the other thing is the self-auditing for repetition. Basically, if your week looks like last quarter's week, you're just maintaining, you're not compounding. So you have to pick one loop that you want to break. You have to ask, hey, what is that one piece of work that would stretch me by 10%? It is not like you're building a new career altogether. You're trying to build a new muscle. And also, from my own career example, you have to ask clearly. It's not hinting or anything. Script that you can use is, hey, I have been performing Scrum Master duties for 3 months. I want a 60-day formal trial. And I think success looks like this. Can we confirm that? So that is how it looks like if you want to move forward. And lastly, I think if you get two firm no's, then you have to consider widen the search. You have to ask potentially for an internal transfer. You have to see if there is a better fit at adjacent teams, or you have to probably make an external move like I did. Like your skills might be just fine. It's your environment that might be the mismatch. So that is all of my practical tips. Shweta, what about you?
Yeah, it's along the same line. I would like to do something around time boxing. Okay. So always make sure whatever you're trying to do to get unstuck, try to time box it. So going back to tech stuck, an example would be get access to a modern report, take a bug or two, try to ship it, document the learning. If it's team stuck, try to create a simple RACI of, what the roles and responsibilities should look like, and tell your lead, hey, I want to do this. I want to take the single deliverable and own it. Should show them on paper. Always try to learning in the wild. And I know I've told it multiple times. Take this as a cue. Try to work on real projects and make your progress visible. Most of the time, what happens is people think visibility is bragging. No, it's a part of your job. Send a short weekly note to your manager. This is what I did. This is what I learned, what I'm trying to do next. That is so important. Bring a proposal, not a problem. Stop complaining. Try to find solutions and propose multiple solutions. What's the worst that could happen? Those solutions might not align with your overall organizational goal. Still, you put an effort to find a solution. And finally, don't operate in vacuum. Talk to your peers inside and outside your orgs. Borrow some playbooks, do some reality check around your plans. The more you look outside, the bigger your map gets, and you can start finding solutions.
I love that, Shweta. That's the kit. You have to diagnose your problem, be honest about it. You have to design your solutions, be intentional about it, and then you have to do the work and hold your receipts. It's just small experiments that compound.
That's right. So we've been talking about so many stuck till now, and we started clearing off that stuck. Why don't we talk about being stuck in the airport and in long lines in traffic for the upcoming Thanksgiving week?
Yeah, Shweta, perfect segue into Thanksgiving week. I want to ask you, what is your first Thanksgiving memory coming to the United States? Because it wasn't a concept in India, right?
Yes, yes. So this holiday or nothing of this was something that we were familiar with or even heard of it at that point of time, right? So the first thing that comes to mind was when I was doing masters, trying to shop at late night in those malls and seeing those malls open throughout the night. So making sure that, we are standing in these lines, buying things we need and we don't need in that limited budget. So that was the first memory of Thanksgiving and a very fond memory of Thanksgiving. And I think we both had a similar experience together too, right? We experienced this together where we went shopping one Thanksgiving night.
Yeah, I remember because our legs gave up right before our cards did. We would take sugar breaks. అక్కడ ఫ్లోర్ మీద కూర్చొని ఈ డీల్స్ ఇంకా చూడలేదు, ఆ డీల్స్ ఇంకా చూడలేదు, అండ్ దెన్ వీ వుడ్ గో అనదర్ రౌండ్. ఐ డోంట్ ఈవెన్ రిమెంబర్ వాట్ వి యాక్చువల్లీ హ్యాడ్ ఫర్ థ్యాంక్స్గివింగ్ డిన్నర్. బట్ వాట్ ఈస్ థ్యాంక్స్గివింగ్ నౌ ఫర్ యూ?
Yeah, these days it's fewer lines and more links, and honestly, more focus on the pause, right? Friends, family, that's taking over. And leftovers somehow feel more tastier the next day.
100% agree. And what are you thankful for this year?
Oh, this year I'm thankful we started this podcast. We talked about it for months. Then we stopped waiting for perfect and hit the record.
Yeah, man, I remember it. మనము ఇన్ని months నుంచి అనుకుంటే finally we just did it. We'll, keep learning out loud. We'll keep experimenting and improving as we go. I think that is the whole spirit of version upgrade.
That's right. So, 3 takeaways. 1, name your stuck role, tech, team, or company patterns, not one offs.
2 is shift to agency. Diagnose, design, do the work, show your receipts.
And finally, align to your goals, build bridges where you want to go, or move when you must. Your path doesn't have to be linear, just intentional.
Okay, now to wrap this up, if this episode helped you and if you know someone in the fog, please share it with them. Please don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe. It helps more people find this show.
Yes, and we'll be back next week. Take care and happy Thanksgiving.